July 2026 made death penalty history in the United States. Several death row prisoners were executed, including a historic double execution in Florida, where 2 inmates were put to death on the same day. In this video, we'll briefly examine the crimes that sent these prisoners to death row, the decades they spent fighting their sentences, and what happened during their final hours. Let's begin. Dennis Sochor, executed July 14, 2026. Dennis Sochor's criminal history began in 1980 when he kidnapped and sexually assaulted a woman in Fort Lauderdale. After his conviction was later overturned, Sochor moved to Michigan, where he committed another sexual assault before returning to Florida. On New Year's Eve 1981, Sochor and his brother Gary met 18-year-old Patricia Marie Gifford and her friend Delta Harville at the Banana Boat Lounge. After midnight, Delta became sick and fell asleep inside her car. Patricia was then forced into Sochor's truck. Dennis drove her to an isolated area where he sexually assaulted and killed her. Her body was later dumped in the Everglades and was never recovered. A photograph taken inside the bar became important evidence because it showed Dennis standing directly behind Patricia. Dennis fled Florida and remained a fugitive for nearly 4 years. In 1986, he was arrested in Georgia after a traffic violation. During questioning, he eventually confessed and told investigators where he had disposed of Patricia's body. His brother Gary testified against him, and in 1987, Dennis was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. Nearly 39 years later, his execution finally arrived. On July 14th, Sochor woke at 6 a.m. and met with his spiritual advisor. He declined food and fasted before his execution. At 6 p.m., he was executed by lethal injection. His final words were an apology to Patricia Gifford's family and a declaration that he entrusted his soul to Jesus Christ. Dennis Sochor was pronounced dead at 6:16 p.m. James Aaron Duckett, executed July 28, 2026. James Aaron Duckett was a police officer in Mascot, Florida, when 11-year-old Teresa McCabe disappeared on May 11, 1987. Teresa had gone to a nearby convenience store to buy pencils for her homework. While she was outside the store, Duckett arrived in his patrol car. He questioned Teresa, then drove away with her, despite another adult offering to take her home. When Teresa's mother reported her missing, Duckett was among the people involved in the search. But investigators soon noticed disturbing inconsistencies. Duckett claimed Teresa had left his vehicle and walked home. Then the next morning, Teresa's body was discovered in Night Lake. Evidence began pointing toward Duckett. Tire tracks near the lake matched the unusual tires on a Mascot police vehicle. Teresa's fingerprints were found on the hood of Duckett's patrol car, and other forensic evidence connected him to the crime. Duckett was eventually convicted of first-degree murder and sexual assault and sentenced to death. He spent approximately 38 years on death row. His case received renewed attention in 2026 after questions were raised about DNA evidence involving a hair found at the crime scene. New testing was ultimately inconclusive. The execution was rescheduled for July 28th. Duckett woke at 4:45 a.m. and was later served eggs, grits, bacon, biscuits, and chocolate milk. He met with a spiritual advisor before being taken to the execution chamber. When offered the opportunity to make a final statement, Duckett declined. At 12:30 p.m., he was executed by lethal injection at Florida State Prison. He was 68 years old. Dominic Anthony Accocone Jr. Executed July 28, 2026. Dominic Anthony Accocone Jr.'s crime began with a failed relationship. In 1985, Accocone became engaged to Anita Garrity, but Anita eventually ended the relationship and moved back in with her parents. Accocone refused to accept the breakup. He repeatedly stalked and harassed Anita, appearing outside her parents' home and pounding on the doors and windows. On June 10, 1986, he returned carrying a firearm. Anita escaped with one of her daughters and called 911. But her parents, Raymond and Martha Artzner, remained inside. Accocone forced his way into the house and shot Martha 4 times, killing her. Raymond was also shot and later died from his injuries. Before dying, Raymond identified Accocone as the shooter. Police tracked Accocone to nearby railroad tracks and arrested him. In 1987, he was convicted of Martha's murder and sentenced to death. He also received a life sentence for Raymond's murder. Accocone spent nearly 40 years on death row. On July 28, 2026, he received his final meal of eggplant parmesan, salad, cornbread, and a soft drink. He later met with his spiritual advisor, who prayed with him while holding a rosary. Before his execution, Accocone apologized to his family. He was then executed by lethal injection at 6 p.m. At 80 years old, he became the oldest inmate executed in Florida's modern era. His execution also made July 28th a historic day. For the first time in more than 6 decades, Florida carried out 2 executions on the same day. Earlier 2026 executions. Although they were executed in June rather than July, 2 additional Florida cases are worth including because they were part of the same wave of executions. Dusty Ray Spencer, executed June 25, 2026. Dusty Ray Spencer met Karen Spencer while working as a house painter. They eventually married, but their relationship became increasingly violent. In 1991, Karen filed for divorce. Spencer assaulted her and threatened to kill her after leaving jail. On January 4, 1992, he attacked Karen with an iron, leaving her seriously injured. Just 2 weeks later, he returned. Karen was outside with her teenage son Timothy when Spencer attacked her with a brick. Timothy tried to protect his mother with a rifle, but the weapon jammed. Spencer then stabbed Karen repeatedly, killing her. He fled but was captured 2 days later. Spencer was convicted of murder and sentenced to death. He spent approximately 34 years on death row. On June 25, 2026, he was executed by lethal injection. His final meal was pizza, fries, and a milkshake. Before his execution, Spencer apologized to Karen's family and said he was placing his spirit and soul in God's hands. He was pronounced dead at 6:10 p.m. Andrew Richard Lukart, executed June 2, 2026. Andrew Richard Lukart had a history of violence against children. In 1994, he pleaded guilty to severely abusing an infant. Despite that conviction, he was eventually released on probation. 2 years later, Lukart was living with Misty Rue and her 2 young daughters, including 5-month-old Gabrielle. On February 25, 1996, Lukart was left alone with the baby while Misty put her older daughter down for a nap. According to investigators, Lukart became frustrated while changing Gabrielle's diaper and violently attacked her. He then attempted to create a kidnapping story, claiming an unknown man had entered the house and taken the baby. Investigators quickly became suspicious. Lukart eventually confessed and led police to Gabrielle's body. A medical examiner determined that the baby's injuries were inconsistent with his explanation of an accidental fall. Lukart was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to death in 1997. He spent nearly 29 years on death row. On June 2, 2026, He was taken to Florida's execution chamber. Before his execution, he looked toward Gabriel's family and simply said, "I'm sorry." He was executed by lethal injection and pronounced dead at 6:19 p.m. He was 53 years old. Final thoughts. These cases show just how long the death penalty process can last. Some of these prisoners spent nearly 4 decades behind bars before their sentences were finally carried out. And July 28, 2026 will remain particularly significant in Florida history. On that single day, James Aaron Duckett and Dominic Anthony Accocone Jr. were both executed, marking Florida's first double execution in more than 60 years. After decades of appeals, court battles, and waiting on death row, their cases finally came to an end. But what do you think? After decades had passed, did these executions represent justice served, or should the cases have ended differently? Let me know your thoughts in the comments.